Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? It is Taj for another episode of the Good Bits Show here live on Wolf Bitcoin. It is another Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Saturday night, depending where you are in the world. This is a global show highlighting all the amazing things that's happening in the world of Bitcoin. My name is Taj, aka Tropic. Those of you that don't know, we hang out here every Saturday evening and highlight all the positive, feel good stories of Bitcoin. And for the second week in a row, we're going to the Human Rights Foundation for some things, but not just highlighting one or two stories here. Their newsletter that came out on August 6th, as you can see right here on the screen, highlights a lot of things that are very, very, very relevant to Bitcoiners. So, of course, what's up with Bitcoin? Where's the price and all that stuff? Not necessarily what we're going to cover in this stream. All those amazing content. We have trading shows, et cetera, that you can check out with Cade throughout the week. But what we highlight in this one is the circular economies, the feel-good stories of people donating and using Bitcoin for what it is intended to do, giving freedom all around the world, but also highlighting the builders, the educators, the boots on the ground that is spreading adoption globally. Now, a lot of the time we like to focus on the doom and gloom, all of the crazy stuff, like depending what space that you're in, like, oh, the sky is falling, therefore Bitcoin. Well, I'm not going to necessarily take this a negative route. I'm going to show this as a positive route. Now, the Human Rights Foundation all over the world, highlighting all sorts of crazy things that's happening. You'd be shocked to know what's going on in the world. Those of us that are living in our happy little bubbles, we take things for granted all the time. But just a few stories. For example, here is some fiat currency, good old paper money that's on the screen here that we're all familiar with and so forth. But if you look at some of these stories, like although this is not a Bitcoin blog, I mean, obviously this is a human rights organization and they're doing different things, highlighting different things, freedom report, if you will. But it really ties in every single one of these stories. So we're going to actually scroll down, going to kind of do it rapid fire as far as what's going on. There's a newsletter, all these different things. But here we go. The Freedom Report for the week. And each and every one of these stories. So as you can see right here, Syria's old banknotes loses legal tender status as they lose 99% of its value between 2011 and 2025. So those of us that live in a society or a country that is heavily dominated by US dollar denomination, it's really laughable when we talk about, oh, the US dollar has lost so much value. Well, yes, it has. It really has. If you look at what our parents, our grandparents, and so on, previous generations were buying houses for, how they were spending their US dollars to buy vehicles, et cetera, especially like the boomers. There's a lot of them still around, the greatest generation ever. They're fewer in numbers, but you talk to them, it's like, wow, you did all this stuff on single income with just, a nickel, right? It's pretty crazy how far the dollar actually stretched back then. But that is not taking away from what's happening in the US, but it's even worse in other places. So Syria, that 99% between 2011 and 2025. Now, those of you that don't really know what's going on, Syria was a part of the whole Arab Spring uprising, overthrowing of governments, etc. And it was just crazy, tumultuous times in that region. And Syria, who was ran by Assad, overthrew, change of regime, etc. Lots of instabilities. And as a result of this, when those types of things happening, paying soldiers, paying security forces, rebuilding countries, it causes a great print. And as a result of this, there is a devaluation of the currency because lots of problems to fix. Well, people want to get paid. The currency needs to be printed. Government has to go out, try to stabilize the region and so forth. 99%. Now, this is very valuable and relevant to us as Bitcoiners because we always talk about the devaluation of fiat currencies. So like there's a joke or a saying that I've always heard from every history teacher, sociology, social studies teacher, that I've ever had is that death and taxes are the two things that are guaranteed in life. They all say it. Well, here's another thing too. You can guarantee that governments are going to print more money. That's just how the thing works, right? So even if you listen to like the Federal Reserve when they're talking about interest rates and so forth, they never, ever, ever say, hey, we're going to eliminate inflation. No, they say we're going to manage inflation. We're going to make inflation at a healthy rate, things of that nature. So inflation is, yes, the price is going up, but also you can look at it as is the devaluation of the currency. There's more printing, nice fancy words like quantitative easing and all this other stuff that is very relevant to this, but 99% of the value in Syria. So do you think those people are interested in Bitcoin? You better believe it, simply because they know the power of their dollar, or their currency, I should say, has completely crashed over the last decade or so. And when it comes to putting food on their tables, all those different things. That's why sats, like, yeah, you could talk about the volatility, the fluctuation. Sure, it's not $125,000 per Bitcoin anymore. But guess what? When you have a national currency that's losing 99% of its value and the old banknotes loses legal tender status, if you're a Bitcoiner in that region, the volatility of Bitcoin is irrelevant compared to that. So that's a story I'd like to highlight. So look into Syria and the devaluation of the currency and so forth, but also lots of instability. Now, this is a huge conspiracy. Not going to go down this rabbit hole, but like some crazy stuff is happening in Cuba. Those of you that don't know, I happen to live on an island of Jamaica, just a little bit north of where I'm living is Cuba. Happen to have some friends that are over there and they kind of tell me what's going on behind the scenes. Not the topic for this show. However, as far as food prices and things of that nature going up, kind of the same thing, right? So we like to talk about how much you can buy with whatever currency it is, whatever fiat in any country. It doesn't matter. It is relevant. It just happens to be Cuba for this particular story, but it could be Jamaica. It could be the US. It could be Haiti. It could be anywhere in the world for that matter. Like we said, guaranteed governments are going to print more money to fund their services, et cetera, their domestic tranquility, using a term from the US. But whatever it is, you know that prices are going to go up simply because the value of the currency is going down. Therefore, when something like this hits Cuba and their food prices and surge and the regime economic controls fail, well, again, Bitcoiners, right? There's lots of Bitcoiners on the island of Cuba, and very, very, I guess you'd say, unfriendly circumstances. What's going on there as far as, being able to connect to the internet and do lots of things many times. However, those Bitcoiners that I do speak to, they're doing retreats, they're doing workshops, et cetera, and spreading the goodness of this stuff. And this is one of the things that actually makes it very, very relevant. So, and as you can see right here, for something as less than $10 a month, Cubans are facing market prices and all these different things that it cannot survive. And if you're sending home remittances using Lightning, this is something that could really help be beneficial to Cubans. And it's just very interesting to really show that these types of things are relevant, because remittances, which those of you that don't know, is sending money back home to your family and friends that are in whichever home country you came from. So people leave whichever circumstance. It doesn't have to necessarily be an authoritarian regime. It just might be just trying to find opportunity, right? You might be in a region where there's just not a lot of economic activity. There's not a lot of businesses. The banking system has been crippled for one reason or another. Again, you can go down the rabbit hole, read the economic Confessions of Economic Hitman and all these different things to see how the monetary system, the financial system has been weaponized all around the world. And a lot of people, rather than just giving up and throwing up their arms and or finding some rebel alliance to go fight and get violent, they have turned to Bitcoin and they've found freedom in that way. So it's very peaceful money, very peaceful opportunity of transition. So when we talk about freedom money, I find it very funny or interesting that this Human Rights Foundation likes to highlight freedom, right? This is called the Weekly Financial Freedom Report. And what Bitcoin offers is financial freedom, but also really a lot more freedom than just in finances. We talk about the finances, we talk about the tech, but truthfully, Bitcoin is a freedom story. And whether these various bank stories, et cetera, but when it comes to the authoritarian regimes, such as North Korea, where rice prices hit record high, again, same thing. Clamp down a lot of censorship, etc. That's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, right? There is no censorship on Bitcoin, right? Of course, there's Bit 110 and all the stuff trying to get the ordinals and all those things stamped out, saying, hey, it is not designed for that. You're just clogging up the Bitcoin. And I know that some people see that as a form of censorship, etc. But as far as that's a completely different topic, really technical for another day. However, as far as when we're talking about censorship, like, you can't stop someone from sending Bitcoin or using it in a way that is, I guess you'd say, against the regime policy, if you will, right? That's the freedom that's in Bitcoin. So if somebody wants to pick up their sats and leave and go to another place, well, guess what? It's actually on the blockchain. It's not in their pockets. It's not on a safe. There is no locking them down or stopping them from doing that. Same thing. If they want to give to a literacy foundation, they want to give to a human rights foundation, there's no stopping those sats from being sent. So it is freedom money. Now, as you could saw, a country can stop honoring the legal tender of the country. They could do all sorts of stuff. You could see what happened in Zimbabwe many times. They shaved off multiple zeros off of the currency, etc. Reset, reissue a new currency, all sorts of crazy things. But guess what? No government has control over Bitcoin. Therefore, when things go crazy with monetary policies and leaderships make bad decisions, whether it is war or whatever it might be, guess what? They can't just reset this thing and start back over. Well, Bitcoin is global. Bitcoin is freedom money in the sense that it can't be controlled or locked down by any individual. And lots of these regimes would absolutely hate it. But guess what? They can't stop it, right? They could try to legislate it. They could try to limit the access to the internet. However, there are multiple ways around that, which we'll get to some of the stories going forward. But here's another one, right? So Russia with Pavel Durov. What's very interesting with Russia, though, is Russia just recently had a crypto legislation that allows for exchanges, et cetera, and paying for certain sorts of good, even though they will not, I guess you would say, honor it as legal tender or for commerce within the country. They do see the opportunity for remittances and for paying for international things, et cetera, because once the Ukraine war started, that's another thing. Depending which side of that story you're on, that is neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. I'm not telling you which side to pick. But what ended up happening once Russia invaded or started that war against Ukraine, we really saw the banking system weaponized in a way that has never happened before. And it woke up a lot of people's eyes and saying, hey, crap, if this can happen to Russia, this can happen to smaller countries, this can happen to individuals, this can happen to corporations and so forth. Well, we need to have a alternative because billions and billions of dollars of Russian bank accounts and businesses, funds were frozen, and they realized it was a huge problem. So, anywho, recent legislation does not stop the use of Bitcoin and crypto in many ways, but at the same time, too, it's neither like a full endorsement of it because, again, it's freedom money, and that's not necessarily the route you want to go if you are trying to control narratives and so forth. But Telegram, of course, that is another messaging app, which I'm not going to go into. There's actually ways to send Bitcoin through Telegram, but another story for another day. Pavel Durov, again, getting himself in trouble with another jurisdiction, but I'm just going to hop over that because that's not directly a Bitcoin story. But with this one right here, Freedom Tech in the Southeast Asia by Frank Korva. So those of you that don't know, Frank Korva does a lot of education and he puts out a lot of resources as far as what's going on. But again, Freedom Tech, I think, is the main story that I wanted to highlight from that, because as you go through, look at Bitcoin learning centers and what's going on, Freedom Technology is how this thing is advertised. This is not advertised as a speculative asset where you can make generational wealth overnight, or let's say you hold it for the 4-year cycle and double your holdings. No, this is Freedom Technology. This is the type of thing that is getting people out of the oppressive boot, out from under the repressive boot, if you will. So when these workshops are presented to people as not a speculative asset, but as technology that offers freedom, it's really easy to onboard people. So again, Bitcoin is what you want it to be, depending where you are in the world. It might be a speculative asset, and that is absolutely amazing, right? That is a wonderful problem to have if you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I flip this and make some more money? How can I preserve wealth for my kids, my grandkids, et cetera? It's generational wealth. That's a great problem to have. That's a privileged problem to have that most people around the world, that might be a problem maybe, let's say, 500 million people around the world have. Like, you add up all the countries and even just a small fraction of the quote unquote wealthy countries, actually those individuals have that problem. But when you look globally, I don't think it's a billion people that actually have that problem to solve of preserving generational wealth. However, when you present the idea of Freedom Tech, well, a couple more billion people actually have that problem that needs to be solved. And I'm not going to point fingers at any regime, but Freedom Technology is what Bitcoin really is. So going on to a few other stories that I really want to highlight more on the tech side. So those of you that don't know, again, the 3 segments that we really try to highlight on this show is, the feel-good stories, the donations, people helping out people and causes using sats, but also we like to dive into like the circular economies and various educational boots on the ground workshops, seminars, where people are being jump-started and introduced to Bitcoin, how they could use it as a form of currency in their business, invoicing, et cetera, using Lightning on most cases. And whether you're using like Cash App and Jack Dorsey's apps and all these different things, There's just multiple ways that this ties in, but the technology side of things is also very, very interesting, which I find it is very timing because this is one of the next stories which I'm going to jump to right here, which is BitChat, right? So, those of you that don't know, I'm going to pull this up right here. This is the screenshot of the Android version. So, I'll be 100% honest. It's a pretty ugly app. I won't lie. It is not a beautiful thing to look at. However, what it is offering is actually quite interesting, and it ties into all the previous stories, all the different countries, and different authoritarian regimes, etc. So BitChat is a clunky looking, monochrome looking app. Those of you that remember the old enough to remember the green screens or the black with the orange screens, like it reminds me of like the first time I've ever on a personal computer in the computer lab of my elementary school, right? I mean those big old floppy disks which were like way dated. I should have not even experienced that in my lifetime because there was other technology out at the time. But anyways, I'm going way off of topic. This train has taken a dirt road, and yes, the green screen. It is not a beautiful looking app. I'll give him that. But Jack Dorsey and company, right? His team. From what I understand, he vibe coded this thing himself. But as a coder, always tinkering, developing different things, and as a Bitcoiner, this is where things come in to I guess you would say great synergy. Is this chat app, unlike WhatsApp and all the other apps that we use, Messenger, Telegram, etc., Signal, does not rely on the internet. It actually relies on Bluetooth. So, of course, Bluetooth has a short range, but the more people using it and connecting, it creates a mesh. Kind of like how Apple has those tags where you can basically ping off of other iPhones to actually find where things are missing, etc. Well, anyways, with this BitChat, you're using Bluetooth. You're able to send encrypted messages. There's no like information being stored up on a server. There is no like username and hack, I guess you would say, data being stored on some central data bank that could be sold. What this actually uses Bluetooth connecting, pinging, and relaying, sending these encrypted messages, but also Bitcoin. But what's interesting with this is, okay, yeah, you can download it from the App Store like this. And again, here's just the screenshots from the Play Store for the Android version. But recently, they opened it up where you can actually send that app user to user, peer to peer using Bluetooth. The reason why that's actually very interesting is because let's just say you're in one of those authoritarian regimes and you're not able to connect to the Play Store or you're not able to connect to the internet. Well, how can you get it? Well, somebody that already has it on their device can send it to you and you can install it using the same technology that allows you to send the messages. And I find that very interesting because a couple of reasons. Those of you that has ever tried to send, let's say, some pictures or videos via Bluetooth from one device to the other, it is incredibly slow. It is like an arduous, like what's the word? A painful task. It is just brutal to watch the bar loading and knowing that like one photo that's, I don't know, 4 MB, 5 MB is taking so long to send. Bluetooth is not the fastest technology. But the reason why this is very cool is because it is such a lightweight and small app that you're able to send this to another user using Bluetooth. And I find it very, very cool that when you are in a situation where you might need something like this and you can't connect to the internet. So it's hearing about it. It's like, oh, this is awesome. But guess what? I can't connect to the App Store or the Play Store. So am I out of luck? No, someone can send it to you. Now, here's a story how this kind of hits home to me. Recently, I was traveling and I was behind the Great Firewall of China. I've always heard about it. I have always known that it is difficult for people to access the open internet and so forth. And I can tell you, being cut off from Google Maps, being cut off from all of the things that I'm used to using is like, oh crap, I take a lot of this stuff for granted. It's just second nature for me to open up Gemini. It's second nature for me to open up ChatGPT. It's second nature for me to open up Claude, whatever it might be, chat with my team using Slack, all of these things, WhatsApp to communicate with my family. It was like, whoa, this is kind of difficult. Now, there's workarounds, not the show for that. But I'm going to tell you this, what's very interesting with this, something like this, BitChat, cannot be firewalled, if you will, because it is Bluetooth, right? It's not using the internet. Therefore, IPs and needing VPNs and travel sims and routing traffic through other jurisdictions like is not necessary, right? Because you're using Bluetooth to send these messages, to send the sats out. So going back to this whole thing of freedom money, right? Many times we talk about price go up. We talk about all these amazing things. But guess what? Freedom money does a lot more than just making people financially rich in fiat terms, right? Freedom money simply does that. Like it allows people the freedom to live their lives and do the things that they want. They can donate to causes. They can take care of their family. They can do all sorts of things that really can't be measured in dollar terms. And I think technology like this is absolutely beautiful. And when it comes to these conferences and live streams like this right here, which I'm going to highlight, Bitcoin Plus Plus Developer Conference, I think it's absolutely amazing to get more people involved, especially kids. So a lot of these, I guess you would say, community organizations, boots on the ground that are bringing people into Bitcoin and speaking about how amazing this stuff is, they're doing it from the either the building standpoint of how mining works. This is how you set up a wallet with paper. This is how you can protect your funds. You can actually start coding and contribute to Bitcoin Core, all sorts of different things. Coding, kind of like how STEM back in the day really was designed to get people into coding, Python, Ruby on Rails, et cetera, et cetera. But Bitcoiners are going out there and getting kids involved into the coding aspect and building and using the code to then go out and create some cool stuff like this Bit Chat. Like, yeah, Jack Dorsey is an OG, has been around. He has just, even X has a lot of, I guess you'd say, like everything to really give thanks to him for what he did with Twitter and all the different things, the protocols. He has donated so many different things, freedom apps, freedom technology, etc. And he is a huge Bitcoin advocate. But that's enough about Jack Dorsey. What about the next kid that's coming up? What about the kid right now that will stroll into one of these workshops? Maybe it's like a summer of Bitcoin, whatever it might be. Just curious, not even knowing what's going on here and saying, hey, there is a serious problem that I can solve for my family in whichever country that I'm living in. And I can offer them freedom at the same time. It could be fun. I could build something that's valuable. I can help people. I can give people freedom. And that's what I love about Bitcoin, is covering all these stories, hopping around and highlighting this stuff. So if you're interested in these type of things, just look up Bitcoin Plus Plus. You can look up all the different stories, Bit Chat, all the stuff that I was speaking about, even the Bit 110, which is controversial in its own ways, but interesting nonetheless. Go look in that, see exactly what it is, how that will affect the protocol and everything that's underneath it, and how that will affect us going forward. Again, I'm not saying that you have to be the most technical person. Just throw it into your favorite AI, start asking questions, chatting with it, tell it to dumb it down as much as possible. All this stuff is open source. So all of these AI and resources actually can go sift through all this stuff, give you some great information. But I just want to say thank you very, very much for hanging out with me. This has been a Saturday. Love doing the stream. This is a Good Bit Stream. My name is Taj, aka Tropic. And if you are into all things Bitcoin, check out all the amazing things that comes out. Cade has spaces literally like every day, all day, and we are doing some amazing things on this page. Content going around the clock. But no matter what type of content that you are into, has to be with finances or the tech of this type of stuff, with crypto, blockchain, we have multiple pages, multiple shows, spaces, live streams, etc. for you. And I say you because I really, really, really appreciate you hanging out with me on a Saturday evening when you could be doing a million other things, but you are here, you care about this stuff, and I really appreciate every single one of you. And of course, reposted this stream. I really, really appreciate you, Antonio, and anyone else that commented, that is here with us. But as usual, looking forward to hearing from you. If there's any amazing stories that you'd like me to highlight, whether it is the feel good stuff, the building stuff, the technology on how Bitcoin is helping people around the world, please DM us, let us know, reach out to me. Always happy to hear from you guys. And this is an interactive show. We want to get you involved. We want to share the things that you care about, that you need highlighted and want highlighted. And we're here together. We're Bitcoiners. We're excited about this stuff. So you have a wonderful weekend. And again, the next thing that will be coming up, live content, will be the space that Cade will be hosting tomorrow afternoon. And lately, those Sunday evening Bitcoin spaces have been amazing. Hundreds of, I guess you'd say, people coming in. There have been, well, concurrently anyways, there's lots of hundreds of people there in the room at the same time, thousands of people coming through. lots of speakers, great points, and they go on for hours because the conversation just does not dry up. So, see you tomorrow, and I will see you on the next one. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again. This has been fun. Later.